then the being behind me, and someone also said to me one time, so you could see behind you. It's like, well, it's not even, like seeing something is almost from the outside. This is like just knowing, and I still have an image of it from behind me, like, in my mind I can see behind me, but it's not like I turn my head that way or anything. And the being said, you have to go back, your father wants you to stay. I knew right then that that father was God, not my physical father. And in the spirit of everything's just so perfect, I went back into my body, and I came to 3 days later in the hospital. It was just such a knowing and loving, and just, even when I think about it now, my energy expands, and it's like, oh, the world is good. And then it's a little confusing because there's obviously certain things in the world that are not so good. Yeah, yes. It is great. And, I can use that for meditation, those visions. And so when I work with people, I can help them connect into that energy. It's really cool. Yeah, my understanding of what happened kind of came after. So this is in the early or mid-1970s. And, I didn't never heard of a near-death experience. I did have some interactions with some spiritual things, but it was always, like I had read Autobiography of a Yogi before that, but that was something that was really for other people, like, these devout yogi, and nothing like a normal person like me would ever experience. Something that was really cool that happened was, so I was living in Colorado. This happened in the Northeast, actually in Port Chester, New York is where the accident happened. And then I moved back, after healing a bit, I moved back to Colorado. My mom kind of bribed me and convinced me to move back to the Northeast and work in my dad's company. And one day I was sitting in my apartment and someone knocks on the door, which, again, nowadays I actually assume it's an Amazon package. But back then, I would get up and open the door. Like now, if someone knocks, I don't even answer unless, they knock a few times, because I assume it's the UPS guy. And but this gorgeous woman was at the door and said to me, I'm the sister of a friend of yours from Colorado. She was one of the people I mentioned my experience to, and this woman said, and I heard some cool things about you. And she pretty much directly right away said, I want to introduce you to this spiritual teacher who teaches people about what happens when we die. It was so cool. And it's funny because I've just kind of taken that for granted until maybe a year ago. I realized, wow, that's really amazing that this woman showed up I didn't do anything. I knew I had this amazing experience, but I didn't know what to do with it. Like, I didn't want to tell people, so it was very cool. So when she introduced me to him, and he read a book he wrote, and when he first started talking to me directly, he started to talk to me about Mary, Jesus' mother, and just how open she was to God's love. And just even now I say that's like, I want to let that loving in, and that openness and that love of God, and that really described my experience. Then he started talking about Jesus, and it was like, that being behind me was Jesus, and just the energy of it. And he talked about the ocean of divine love and benevolence. And he was an Islamic Sufi teacher, and these are things that are part of the Islamic religion, but they really gave me words to explain my experience, because I did not know what to make of it. I had some things changed in me. There's no doubt about that. Probably the biggest thing was I was just very curious to know, and I needed to know, and still that's what I feel like. So I've been studying this stuff. I meditate every day, do a lot of personal growth stuff, and still there's just so much more to know. There's an infinite amount of stuff in spirit. There's an infinite amount of love and healing from God, and there's always more to go. The other thing that happened is my hands start to become very warm, and this still happens when I touch someone, like almost instantly. And again, didn't know what to make of that. Nowadays people know about healers and stuff, and my only knowing about healers was on like Star Trek, the original Star Trek series. And, there was like, of course I kind of fantasized, oh, I could do that, but I thought it wasn't really real. So, and I just had some things happen. One of the early things was a friend of mine, actually my friend's father, who I was friends with also, he told me his father. So my friend's grandfather was very sick, and I said to him, I'll pray for him. And I did, and I felt something happen. And again, I didn't go check right away because I thought it was just some, my ego or something. But when I saw the father the next time, he said, I think something happened when you prayed, because that day he got so much better, where they were thinking he was going to die any day to where he lived for months longer. Again, not really knowing what to do with this, but started learning eventually from this teacher who was an amazing healer in his own right, and he would tell me I was a sensitive, which I knew was good because he called himself that in his book. And then I started to learn, and I've met lots of other people who teach spiritual things and methods for healing and everything. Well, my whole mission in life became, maybe changing me is the wrong word, but it just made me aware of my mission in life, which it is that I do meditate every day. I heal people, but I take it very seriously. So I spend hours every morning doing journal writing, doing Tai Chi, some yoga, meditating. There's some other things I do from time to keep my energy clear, to align more and more with the spirit. So I think getting help from someone who knows more than you is really important, because, my near-death experience was really a big thing, but like I said, I didn't even know what to do with it. Most of the really big explosions in awareness after that happened with the assistance of spiritual teachers. So, a lot of times, and I understand sometimes I wish I could I can do a lot myself now, but sometimes I wish I could do it all by myself, but I realize that really is the ego, and God's gifts come however they come. And if there's someone, it's kind of like, I don't know, doing some home improvement things. If, you ask someone who knows more than you, you get help from people when there's things you don't know. So that's important. But meditation and journal writing are probably the main two things people can do to help themselves.